They say you can tell everything about a person by the car they drive or the watch on their wrist. In this building, Julian was the king. He was 28 years old, making 6 figures as a senior developer. He wore expensive sneakers and ordered artisan lunches every day. And then there was Sarah. Sarah was the ghost. She arrived when the sun went down. She emptied the trash, wiped the glass, and faded into the background. To Julian, Sarah was just a part of the furniture. But Sarah had a secret. While Julian was working to pay for his life, Sarah was working to buy her freedom. Let's be real. Saving money when you're starting from zero isn't a montage in a movie. It's exhausting. Sarah didn't have extra money. She had to carve it out. She lived in a tiny studio, miles away from the city lights. While her friends were out at Saturday night parties, Sarah was picking up the double overtime weekend shifts. Why? Because she understood the math of the exit. She knew that every few hundred pesos she invested wasn't just a cost. It was a seed. If she could just get enough seeds in the ground, eventually, the forest would grow itself. Her co-workers called her stingy. She just called herself patient. 5 years in. This is where most people quit. Sarah had saved enough to buy a nice car or a down payment on a flashy condo. Julian did exactly that. He got a promotion and immediately upgraded. New condo, higher monthly payments. New car, higher insurance. He was making more, but he was actually poorer than when he started. He was running faster on a treadmill that was speeding up. Sarah? She stayed in her humble apartment. She didn't buy a car, she bought REITs, real estate investment trusts. Every time Julian paid his expensive rent, a tiny fraction of a cent traveled through the banking system and landed in Sarah's account. She wasn't paying for a roof. She was owning the rooftops. Year 12. The economy broke. We've all seen it. The headlines are red. Everyone is screaming, "The world is ending!" Julian panicked. His portfolio, mostly hype stocks he bought because of social media rumors, dropped 40%. He needed cash because his car payment was due, so he sold at the bottom. He locked in his losses. Sarah felt the fear, too. Her heart raced when she saw her account drop. But she remembered the rule. Wealth is transferred from the impatient to the patient. She didn't sell. She took her emergency fund and bought more. She wasn't a genius. She just had a stomach of iron. By year 20, something weird happened. The snowball took over. Sarah's investments were now growing by more than her annual salary every single month. She didn't have to work. She chose to stay for 1 more year just to watch. She watched Julian, now nearly 50, looking tired, gray-haired, and still complaining about the grind. One night, the company announced it was being bought out by an investment group. The board of directors held a meeting. Julian sat in the back, worried about his job. Sarah walked in. She wasn't carrying a mop. She was carrying a folder. She sat at the head of the table. She didn't say, "I told you so." She just looked at Julian and smiled. She wasn't a ghost anymore. She was the landlord. You're watching this because you want to be Sarah, but you feel like Julian. You feel the pressure to look successful before you actually are successful. The secret to being a millionaire isn't a high salary. It's the gap between your ego and your income. Sarah didn't win because she was lucky. She won because she was willing to be invisible for 20 years, so she could be invincible for the rest of her life. The time will pass anyway. 20 years from now, you will be older. The only question is, will you own your time, or will someone else?